Alright, so we're finally doing part 4, and we finally hit my first home console that wasn't a hand-me-down from my parents. As talked about in the other parts, my dad had a PlayStation, and we had a family computer, and like an actual PC, not the NES. And I got a handheld console, the Game Boy Advance, and very quickly after the Advance SP. So I was still really young at the time, and I honestly don't think I was even aware other home consoles behind the PlayStation, besides the PlayStation 1, even existed. That all changed one day when we visited a really close family friend who was, pretty much family, honestly. And they introduced me to the Xbox. I believe this was maybe spring, summer-ish 2003. And they pretty much just had a bunch of different sports games, honestly. I decided I wanted to try out NASCAR Thunder 2002, mainly because, like I said, at the time, my favorite game was Crash Team Racing, and I knew NASCAR was also racing, so it would be familiar. And we did actually have a game on PS1. Admittedly, I didn't really like it that much, but I thought, I would give this a second shot. And the difference between the two was like night and day. This game just played and looked so much smoother and better. And I just remember playing with this family friend and it eventually devolving into us, going the wrong way and wrecking each other. And it was a good time. I was smart though, because at the time I was like, wait, if a NASCAR game is this much better on Xbox, is there Crash Bandicoot games on here? Is there another Crash Team Racing? And given the time frame, yeah, that this was around the time Crash Nitro Kart was gearing up for release. And then I found out about Wrath of Cortex too, and then at that point, I probably pretty much started harassing my parents for an Xbox nonstop. And I never really knew what went on behind the scenes, but I think my parents were going to have the family friend get me an Xbox for the holidays that year, or they'd split it or whatever. And I just remember, going down to play more Xbox with them, still, fall a few months before Christmas. And I was probably, all talking about how much I wanted an Xbox. And they sent me home with that Xbox that day. I remember my parents were pretty surprised. But yeah, they were they were going to have two at some point anyway, with one being gifted to me. And they also sent me home with all the games they had, except Halo, mainly because, like I said, all the sports titles are annual releases, so there was, new games out that they were, looking to get the updated version of. I actually just looked at the page. Yeah, Halo 2 wasn't out for like another year, so maybe in another reality where this was a year later, I would have been walking home with Halo as well. But as for the other games, there was only, I think, 4-ish total. There's a couple games I'll dive into that I don't particularly remember the time frame of, whether it was, with this group or if it was just my parents or whoever experimenting with titles that might interest me. But it was NBA Inside Drive, the 2002 edition, NFL Fever 2002. In general, too, with all these games, like my Xbox was honestly a Crash Bandicoot machine, which is kind of ironic given, the history of the series that would go back and forth, I guess, between PlayStation and Xbox at the end of the day. But I would occasionally, if I was kind of in the mood for something different, get into, some of these games for, I don't know, a couple weeks or so. Nothing too crazy. There was also F1 2001, looking back, I guess I'm a little surprised I didn't pick this one over NASCAR because, like I said, I didn't really like the PlayStation 1 version, but I don't know. Maybe I probably didn't even know what F1 is, honestly. Or maybe I just wanted that familiarity, no matter what it was, I guess. Actually, this was probably the one I played the least just because the NASCAR game was easier and more chaotic. There was also a double pack, and this is one of the games I don't remember. I know I got it really early, but I don't know, like I said, if it was with the console or if it was, I don't know, around the holidays or what. But this was Star Wars The Clone Wars, which is kind of funny because I don't remember playing it too much, but I remember getting really into it for a little bit, especially after I realized, because I had no idea that this was by the same people who did Battlefront. At that point, I loved Battlefront, although I wouldn't own it till much later. I would just play it at a neighbor's house. But I had no idea it was the same developer and, similar in some ways. Tetris Worlds was also part of that package. Oh yeah, it says right there, but I didn't play this one too much. We had one for the PlayStation that I think I just kind of preferred. This one was kind of weird. Like this one had like kind of like sci-fi story mode or something with it about like different planets that Tetris blocks inhabit. I think even back then I was just like, I'd rather a more core Tetris experience, I guess. Another game that was in that time frame of uncertainty was Project Gotham Racing, and similarly, this one sat for a while, and then I eventually, was trying to, play and get into it. And this is kind of a funny. So I have a younger sibling, and it was around like the Xbox and stuff where they started to play games. They weren't really super into the PS1. They had their own Game Boy Advance though, and a set of their own games there. But I remember we were at each other's throats a lot. We're good now, but back then we were brutal, I guess. So I don't remember the order of things, but I remember to get even, I deleted the Lego Star Wars save files, and they, around the time I was starting to play Project Gotham Racing, took the disc and rubbed it on the driveway, which wasn't funny at the time, but at the same time, looking back, I'll give them some credit. Like I heard of other people bickering and they would just delete each other's saves. This was like an escalation. A little more creative and devious. Like they could still play Lego Star Wars. I can't play what I was playing now. I think that's probably the first game I ever had that just ceased to function. But then the holidays, and this is where it becomes the Crash Bandicoot machine. We had the Wrath of Cortex, which I think I played Warp a little more because my grandparents had a PlayStation 1, and I remember bringing some games over there when I had to visit. But at home, I feel like I played the Wrath of Cortex more. Actually, there was probably a point where, if I'm out, I'm playing Warped. If I'm at home, I'm playing Wrath of Cortex. Which is kind of funny because I never, especially back then, made it that far at all with either of these games. I think I made it to about the third warp room in both, but I think it even took me a while to get even that far. Eventually I would go back and 100% complete both. But that wasn't until, honestly, I think it was, within the last 5 years, so, 15, 20 years later. And then there was the big one, Crash Nitro Kart, a direct sequel to my favorite game. I remember that holiday being extra brutal because, especially as a kid, you wake up, you open your presents, and then you have to go out to relatives' houses for the rest of the day and not able to really mess around with what you got. And with how hyped I was for this game, that day dragged. I was probably a pain in the ass towards my parents. I can already imagine at our last stop just being like, can we go now? Can we go now? Can we go now? An annoying piece of shit, but finally got home, played it. I probably played it as much as team racing, honestly. Or I don't know, maybe not, because there was just a lot of years where it was just Crash Team Racing, you know. But I feel like, some of the streaks where I was really just putting in a lot of time, a day for several, consecutive days, weeks, whatever, it was, equivalent. And the game didn't disappoint at the time. I mean, looking back, less courses is kind of a bummer. I remember liking the boost counter that they had, that I wish they had in Nitro Field, to see how big of a combo you can build up. The zero gravity was cool, I remember. When Mario Kart 8 was coming out, thinking like, oh shit, I've had zero gravity since 2003. Obviously it was a bit different there, though. I remember a good memory, too, is that where the PlayStation 1 was my dad's, I mean, he kind of just got it to try out a few games, and particularly play through Metal Gear. Besides that, I mean, he never really gamed a lot or anything, so, and neither did my mom. So it was really rare for me to play games with my parents, which, not an issue, is what it is, but I remember playing this with my dad when we came home that night. And, I remember particularly messing around with battle mode. Probably about the only time I really played battle mode. And for some reason, I think you could have played it against the comms, but I just never did. Or maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe you could in Nitro Kart, but not in team racing. So I had someone there to play with. I'm like, okay, we better get right into battle mode while I can. I could be wrong on that, though. I don't remember it exactly. But yeah, besides that, I mean, played Tetris with my mom a few times. I got them to play Melee once. And actually, I do remember playing Wii Sports and Guitar Hero Rock Band with them a little bit, too. But that's stuff for later. So either that holiday or within the next year, I remember getting Fairly Odd Parents Breaking the Rules. Fairly Odd Parents was okay. I was definitely more into Jimmy Neutron and SpongeBob, and Fairly Odd Parents, like it would sometimes be on instead of them, and it was alright, but I would rather be watching the other two. It had a couple, decent episodes, I guess. I remember liking the one where they went inside a video game. It's kind of what you imagine. Actually, it's basically Sword Art Online, the episode, but yeah, there was a level based on that, and I thought that was really cool to play a video game within a video game. But I honestly didn't play this one much other than maybe replaying that level, just because one of my favorite parts about some of the Nickelodeon games was just going around their worlds and exploring, and this game was really restrictive with that. Like, I think you were just locked in Timmy's room, and I think it was like a hub world, and you unlocked like other areas as you progressed, but I never made it that far. I mentioned earlier, occasionally I would break out one of the sports games and play it a little bit. I'm assuming sometime, I don't know, during a holiday, birthday, or whatever, when people are looking to get me shit. I was probably playing NFL Fever because I got mad in 2005. I honestly not sure if I ever actually played a American football match in it, but I remember spending a lot of time in the create a character, create a fan mode. I don't know, from the gameplay perspective. I think I did try it a little bit, and it was just like I preferred NFL Fever in that department. But once again, this is coming from someone who knows, little to nothing about American football or just any sport in general. In general, my collection for the Xbox almost grinded to a stop, honestly, because of another system that I got that we'll talk about next time. But I did complete the Crash Bandicoot collection on Xbox. I remember I didn't get to Insanity at launch. I remember renting it from Blockbuster first. And I remember it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, it just didn't feel as good as Wrath of Cortex. And I don't know, the tone had kind of changed around quite a bit, too. Actually, I probably got it from Blockbuster so that I could play it before the holidays. But then I think I wound up, I don't know if I got it for the holidays or if I wound up just caving and deciding to get it later. But I didn't play this one that much. I feel like, too, this game was, even early on, like it had its technical issues, too, which didn't help. once again, I think it was around the same time I played The Wrath of Cortex not super long ago that I finally played through all of Twinsanity. And yikes, that is definitely a game. It's been said a lot, but it needs a remake. There's, a lot of, good ideas in that going on. It just could use a modern touch and some improvements. I don't know. I don't know if you can get away with selling it by itself, though. Like, I don't know. Do you have, a pack with the Wrath of Cortex? Do you maybe redo some of the GBA games with it? I don't think people are too interested in Of the Titans and Mind Over Mutant. There's probably some people, but unless you just sort of have it as, a more budget $20 to $40 deal, I don't know. Or I think it would be really cool if they almost, try to, because this game had shifted around so much in development from when it was Crash Evolution, and they were even, pursuing a direct sequel and spin-off. So it's like, do you even try to maybe add a smaller title using some of those, concepts that we know about but never saw? Maybe some that we didn't even get to see. I don't know. Then there's Crash Tag Team Racing, and what a game. I remember once again being excited because, it's even got Crash Team Racing in the title, and it's like, you would think it's like a double dash mode, but with guns, which sounds fucking awesome. The game itself, though, honestly, I will say, for what it was, I had a fun time with, a lot of the side stuff. Like, they had a shitload of mini games. The sort of rail shooter thing, I guess you have, was kind of fun. They had like a platforming story mode. That stuff was all fine. I remember even having some fun in this stunt mode where you had to sort of build up a high score in that, doing different tricks. It was the actual, racing part, which was the highlight of team racing and Nitro Kart, that was absolute shit here. Like I said, I think I spent most of the game in the gunner mode, or I don't even know what they call it. And like I said, it was playable, it was fun, but it was certainly not what you would expect. I don't remember being that disappointed. I don't know if I was just, hey, I still got Nitro Kart, or if maybe their marketing did sort of set expectations accordingly, or if I just kind of thought, what, it's at least got all this other stuff with it. I don't know. It's just a really strange case. The final game we have to talk about is Forza Motorsport. Now, actually, our Xbox's hard drive failed. I remember I was actually playing some Lego Star Wars with my sibling, and the game sort of froze and had sort of like a graphical glitch or something, it looked like. And then I don't remember what happened, if we got an error message, if it would even turn back on, but it was dead. And it was like, we're already, invested. You can't, not play some of the games we have or try to reobtain them for another console. So I remember we sold several games and used it to get a new Xbox. And it came bundled with Forza. I honestly didn't even try it until, years later, honestly. I think there was like an Xbox Live Arcade thing with it too, but I don't know if I ever figured how it worked. I don't remember if it could have even just been, a video showcase of the Xbox Live Arcade. I don't remember it having like demos or anything on it. Like I said, the next console, same generation. I feel like once, we had it, we were getting, more games for it than the Xbox. And, question was it PS2 or GameCube? It was GameCube. So that's what we'll be talking about next time. Hopefully a little quicker. I won't get so preoccupied with other shit to where it'll be, a while between parts like it was between 3 and 4.